we're live.
I am a human popsicle. I'm recording. No, it's like, what's that? I'm a meat popsicle. That's from the Fifth Element.
Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
And we have another very special episode. We have the 1968 movie Planet of the Apes. Nathan, do you have a history with this movie?
Oh, yeah. I've watched this movie like 20 times.
Okay.
I like this movie. It's cool. It's another movie where the bad guy's like right. It's one of those movies where it's like, well, if you don't like Dr. Zaius, he's not wrong.
I think this is the first time I ever sat down and watched this movie all the way through, because this is a movie that's been eviscerated or vivisected by pop culture. And there's
don't the Simpsons have to reference this every 20 episodes?
Oh yeah.
It's some kind of thing.
Mostly what I know about this movie is from The Simpsons.
Okay.
And every once in a while, that one weird, I can't even remember the context for it, but they're watching a Planet of the Apes musical, and they have Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius.
Oh yeah, it's the Falco song from Amadeus. That sounds like something Conan O'Brien came up with.
Yeah, probably. So yeah, and of course it was on all the time, and I probably actually seen more most of the way through of the sequels than probably the original. Then of course I saw the Tim Burton one, and I've seen all the recent ones. So
yeah, I've seen all of them.
I've never seen any of the TV shows though.
TV shows are what got me interested in this.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, because I think the TV show only lasted one season, but I was always because it was playing after school when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes TV show. I was like, what's the backdrop to all this? Who are these? What are they talking about? And I just wanted to know more about it, and that's why when I watched the original one.
Now, which one did you? Because I read that I haven't seen either, so I don't know. They said there's one is animated and one is live action, so I don't know which one you saw.
I saw the live action one. I know there's an animated one, but I haven't seen that. Okay. I just only recently, within the last 2 years, watched the animated Star Trek.
I hear that's good.
Never gone around to it, huh?
I hear it's good, and it's weirdly it's like a one long story rather than just episodic.
Yep.
Because people have kind of dragged it back into the canon. Because I don't even know that came about. Was that just because we can't? It's too expensive to make a new season, so we're just gonna make an animated one and get the voice actors back.
I don't really actually know the history about it. Because I think a lot of it was the actual people were voicing.
Yeah. I mean, it's the main people doing the voices, but
and I know they could do weird aliens in that, that really were weird because they couldn't. They weren't just limited to bipedal, humans with spiky heads. So they had guys with 6 arms and stuff.
But I didn't know I don't know why it came about. If it was just cheaper to produce, or if it was in that wake of, oh crap, we cancel Star Trek and it's really the biggest thing in the world.
I think it was more part of that and a way to keep the franchise going until they could figure out what they were doing with Star Trek Phase 2.
Okay, yeah.
Which became Star Trek the Motion Picture, which is the best and the worst of Star Trek all in one film. But yeah.
And there was only one season of the animated series, right?
Yeah. It didn't last very long.
How many episodes? Because sometimes this cartoon had one season, but it has 35 episodes.
I think I remember it was like 20.
Okay, that seems normal.
Yeah, because I know it actually there's the Klingon proverb everyone knows from Wrath of Khan about revenge is a dish best served cold. That's not my favorite Klingon proverb though. My favorite Klingon proverb is only a fool fights in a burning house. It was used in the TV series. I forget because there was some entity trying to turn the Klingons and the humans against each other, fighting on the Enterprise. But they both figured out it's it's influencing us. And that's when I first heard that term, because the Klingon captain is I'm not going to fight you, Kirk. Only a fool fights in a burning house. The ship's going to blow up anyway. I don't care. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then they actually expanded on Klingon philosophy of honor and what was it? It explained the Klingon philosophy of honor and prudence. It's like, because why do we use cloaking devices? Aren't those cowardly? It's like, well, when fighting the Federation, who's a superior enemy, you need all the advantages you can. You can't just, so it's like, don't burn your house down for honor, basically, by not using. It's like, wow, that's way nuanced and crazy for an animated TV show from the 70s to have two Klingons sit down and philosophize and like this. But, yeah, it has nothing to do with this movie, but yeah.
I don't know. Like, this movie is pretty much just an expensive episode of Star Trek.
It's basically the same special effects universe. The guy from the Twilight Zone wrote the script.
Yeah, this is very close. I mean, it's around the same time. So.
Yeah, it's 60s. It's the late 60s. We're all, it's that because it's a bunch of TV people that made a movie, essentially. That's how it worked.
Now, did you get to watch this movie not knowing the twist at the end?
I did not know the twist at the end.
Okay. Was that awesome or what?
Yeah, actually it was. I was like, oh, cool. Because I was always into like Doomsday as a kid and an adult too. It was like, oh yeah, this fits right in. But I knew from the TV show that like humans were first. So I knew that like, oh, humans existed before the apes. But I didn't know like until the end, because it took me a while to understand. It's like, oh, did they, it's like, oh, they're in New York City. It's like, oh, no, wait a minute. Yeah, it's like, no, that's just wrecked. Because I remember, because I watched this as a real little kid, I think 8 years old. And then much later as, like 12 or 13. And
because like as me growing up, the only thing I knew about this movie was the twist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So there's no way I was going to watch this movie without that being spoiled. It's like,
it's like the biggest thing. Because it was also like Charlton Heston. It's like everyone remembers it for two reasons: the twist and his performance.
Yeah.
At the end, because that's classic Charlton Heston. By the way, he wrote that dialogue. Like.
Oh yeah,
he was the one who threw that in. It wasn't. That was improvised. The twist was there, but it's like, you ruined it all. Damn you! That was him.
Oh yeah. That's what he does. Because that's like, I think on some level that's terrible dialogue, and even the performance isn't great, but he brings an energy to it that like almost nobody can. It's like, here's bad dialogue, make something out of it, and it's great.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want Charlton Heston to be anything other than Charlton Heston, and I like him in all his movies. I love Sword and Sandals Charlton Heston. I love post-apocalyptic Charlton Heston. It's all great. Just like it's like William Shatner. It's just like, oh, it's going to be crazy, but you're going to like it. God, it's like no one can do that. And no one can, and then you got Patrick Stewart, like Shakespearean trained actor. It's like, I like Captain Picard too, but if he started acting like William Shatner, it'd be really weird.
Yeah.
So yeah. And plus, if you've ever seen The Twilight Zone, it's like the ending of this is like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's exactly, yeah. That's why all this, it's why talking about Star Trek isn't out of hand, because it's that and Twilight Zone and all the other like 800 different anthology series that were out that you never knew existed.
Yeah, that basically had like 4 people writing on them instead of like a room full of people. This is why Rod Serling smoked a lot. Not only did he show up at the beginning of the Twilight Zone, he wrote almost all the episodes. And those are the ones that made it. I can imagine how many he wrote that like never made it.
Yeah, maybe they ended up in those other anthology series.
Oh, I've watched all. It's like anything Rod Serling. It's like I'm watching. It's just like Ray Bradbury. It's like I'm combing the archives for all the Ray Bradbury, the unpublished works.
It was directed by Franklin J. Schaffner.
Yep.
Who like 2 years later he did Patton, so that's a pretty good run. Also known for The Boys from Brazil and Papillon. So
yeah,
that's kind
he seems like he's kind of like he gets big films.
Yeah.
And he was also like the head of the DGA, so
okay.
So he was like one of these guys that like I think he worked through that what they called the studio system.
Yeah, definitely.
And he just, came through and did that.
And then got a job representing directors.
Yeah.
Yeah, why work when you don't have to?
Just right kind. He died kind of young. Well, he was 69, but that's kind of young.
Nice.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Back in the whiskey and cigarettes. I'm not sure.
Cinematographer is Leon Shamroy. He definitely seems like a studio guy because he has 121 credits.
Hmm.
Not a lot of stuff I recognize, but he did do like the Cleopatra movie with what's her name, Elizabeth Taylor, which I remember that. I don't know. I never seen that. I remember like people talk about that being a huge movie, so I don't even know if it's good, but it
Yeah,
kind
it
of
is.
it kind of
I
seemed
mean,
like that thing like it'd show up on TV where it's like, oh, we're showing, the Ten Commandments this week, and the next week we're showing Cleopatra.
yeah, it's kind of in that. Yeah, it's kind of in that. Again, those are what they call the sword and sandals films.
Yeah,
Because see that was weird. Like that was interesting. The transition, because some of my favorite movies, um, are the Ten Commandments, Ben Hur, and there was a couple other of those movies. But it's interesting, like Charlton Heston made that transition. It's like, oh, they because in the 50s and early 60s he was that guy, and then in the mid to late 60s he became this guy, and it's kind of like it's just a cultural shift that he actually wrote. It's like, oh, they don't want that kind of fiction anymore, they want this kind of fiction, and it's like I'm going to fit right into this. So it's kind of amazing. But yeah, there was a lot of movies like that
yeah. I
around.
don't know. Was he ever in any westerns? Because that was still like at this time the predominant thing. Like,
I'm not sure. I may he had to have been.
um, yeah. One interesting I picked up that this guy shot as well, and also Heston was in it, was the Agony and the Ecstasy, which I guess is about um, Michelangelo working on the Sistine Chapel,
Oh, okay.
where he plays Michelangelo. Oh wait, no, does he? Yeah, he plays Michelangelo. Okay. Which I never heard of. I was just like, that's a weird name for a movie. What's that? It's like, oh, okay, these guys work together like 3 years apart. Oh, maybe worked with them again. I'm not sure. I didn't parse that enough. This is written by Michael Wilson, or I guess adapted by Michael Wilson and Rod Serling. So it's an and,
Yeah.
not the symbol. So it's the word. So they wrote it separately. He's got some good. Yeah, wrote Lawrence of Arabia and Bridge over the River Kwai. So he's
Yeah,
got some.
those are some pretty solid things.
And of course, Rod Serling, which it's Twilight Zone, so it definitely fits in here.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Based on the book Planet of the Apes by Pierre Boulle.
yeah, which is a French novel.
Yeah, I got a English translation of it to
Yeah,
read, and I found it exceedingly boring.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
I listened to the book on tape because Audible has a special. If you have Audible, you can listen to it for free. So that was cool.
Oh, I didn't know that. Maybe I would have got more out of it on tape. I found it kind of boring to read.
Because I thought it was interesting, but it's I don't know. There's a weird like framework to it that like you don't expect. Because it starts off with there's like a rich couple that's like gallivanting about the stars. They're
Yeah, it was like in
literally
a space yacht. Yeah.
yeah, and there's like and their system has 3 suns, so they basically have all the solar wind they can get.
Yeah.
And then they find a message in a bottle in the middle of space. Like, man, that's a get.
In space, you found this. In three-dimensional space, you found this message.
So yeah, I listened to the book, so I was like, so just to prep for that, because like, oh, it's only 5 hours, I'll get through it. So I thought it was kind of interesting, but it's mostly, I mean, like in the book, it's all just like they literally go to another planet. The
Yeah.
big surprise there is the first thing they see is humans. It's like that's weird. We shouldn't find people exactly like ourselves completely on the other side of the galaxy.
Yeah.
And then they find out like, oh, they're not the predominant species. So now it's like, and then they get shuffled in the mix, and now they're like treated like animals, even though they're intelligent. And there's also a weird thing here where it's like they make the ape civilization in the book like way more sophisticated. Like they're
Yeah, it's
just
like a
on the
space civilization.
yeah, they're
Almost.
just on the edge of going into space. Like they're putting satellites in space. Here, it's basically like they have technology, but like they're not venture. Like they're pretty secluded. They're not venturing. They're not going around in planes. They don't have like cars and stuff like that here in the
Yeah,
movie.
the
They're
thing I
pretty.
liked about this when you watch the movie and you follow it all the way through, like the ape civilization is like Oh, it's almost feudal in how it works, but they have like firearms and stuff, which would actually make sense because they're just building off an older civilization, ours, you come to find out.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, they maybe wouldn't have like petroleum and cars and stuff like, or not widely. Yeah, and also they have a very they have this very what would you call it? Like kind of religiously run theocratic state where they do have like science and stuff like that, but it's like these are like scientists in like the 18th century, you know. It's
Yeah.
like those kind of that kind of science. It's like we understand some things, but we also have to kind of blend it with theology so we don't get like crucified. Like they're not out of that phase yet, which would like that actually makes sense because it's yeah, it's like, oh no, they the precursor technology that they're building everything off of, they're actually afraid of because of how that ended. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, we're gonna throttle this back a little bit, and we're gonna have a little more statues, a little more philosophy, a little less technology. Yeah, even though they're actually acting the exact same way as people. That's like the apes. People are not that different.
And there's a weird section in the book where it's like basically Assassin's Creed, but it's doing it before then. I mean, it may have been a long concept, but like the idea of racial memory, or that you can tap into the history of your ancestors and like look back on like a simulation
Yes.
of it. That's in the book where they basically see like, because in the book it's like humans came first and then the apes rose up, but this is still on a completely different planet.
Yeah.
And like there's also some idea of that there was a that every planet with humans has like a greater civilization that basically came by and dropped off some people, and so there's always a greater civilization that's beyond us that we don't know who they are or where they
The
came
space
from.
elves, they're out
Yeah.
there spreading. We're the
Johnny
crude,
Appleseed the universe.
we are the crude children of God.
um, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I listened to the book.
Jerry Goldsmith did the soundtrack to this movie too.
Who's that?
Oh yeah.
Oh, Jerry. I thought you said Yuri Goldsmith, and I'm like,
Oh,
who
I
the
said
hell's
Jerry.
that? Yeah, we have two Fox films in a row. So,
Yeah. Oh
um, yeah. I also know like the other thing I know about like this series was used as like as sort of an experiment with Fox of how to do sequels.
yeah. Okay.
Because at that time, sequels always made less money than the originals. So the thing is, with every subsequent movie, they just cut the budget in half and then put out another movie until they couldn't put out another movie.
Yeah, the old sequel math.
Now it's like flipped.
Yeah. Now it's like, oh, we just got to film. We don't just make one movie as a sequel. We film three at the same time. So we shave like $20 million off the cost. But when this movie also came out after they had a big bomb. What was their big bomb? It was the Nutty Professor, I think.
Oh, really? Oh,
Or
okay.
no, what was no, it was another one. I can't remember.
Was
Anyway,
it Doctor
this
Doolittle or something?
yes, Dr. Doolittle, that's it. Yeah, they had that, and then they had this, and then they're like, well, this is our last throw of the dice because Dr. Doolittle. I think they spent $17 million, and that's in 60s bucks, and they made back like 3 million, which is like, well, that's that's we're dead. So yeah, this movie had to do big, and it did.
Or was it? Was it Doctor Doolittle?
I
Okay.
think so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking of the recent Doctor Doolittle bomb with like oh, what's his name? The guy, Tony Stark.
Tony Stark. Oh yeah, the yeah, Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember like everything I've seen of that movie looks absolutely terrible and ridiculous, and also bombed. So I might be confused. It'd be weird that a movie that was remade twice bombed twice, including the original.
Yeah, you think they'd learn at some point? It's like,
And
well,
I don't even know how well the Eddie Murphy Doctor Doolittle did. I think maybe that got a sequel, so it must have done well enough for them. I don't know.
yeah, Eddie Murphy can carry almost anything except Pluto Nash.
Yeah, that's one of those. Yeah, there was a Doctor Doolittle 2 for Eddie Murphy. So. Yeah, Pluto Nash is like a We probably gotta watch that sometime. I just know that as being a like crazy bomb because the reason you didn't, because that came out like in the wake of the Matrix, and it's supposed to be a comedy, like almost like on the level like, but like a comedy mixed with like Fifth Element, and it cost something like $160 million. It's like, why would you ever invest that much money into a comedy? No one's
Yeah,
ever gonna go see that.
that's weird.
And then it made like $6 million at the box office. Like, oh Jesus Christ!
Yeah, this is dead on arrival. You just might as well burn all the film stock just to, create some kind of artificial scarcity, so you could do a release later. It's like there's only 100 of these made. Yeah, this movie cost like $6 million to make, but it made back 33 million. But that's like those numbers I'm looking at are like
that's like
domestic.
$60. That'd probably be like $150 million or something.
Yeah,
like that.
well, that's just domestic box office.
Yeah, and that's also like price tickets were cheaper then, so they're probably like oh, what would that be? That probably like 15 million people saw that movie or something.
Yeah, the movie ticket was like a buck. Or something. Yeah.
And then cast, of course, Charlton Heston, Roddy McDowall, and Kim Hunter. I think those last two are in ape costumes. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Maurice Evans, Dr. Zayas. James Whitmore is the president of the assembly. You'd know him from all kinds of... All these are like big 60s actors and actresses. I don't think any of these people are alive anymore.
No.
That's kind of like scary.
Except maybe the person who voiced... I don't know. Who did the voice of the cousin, the little cousin at the end of the movie? It's like fending off people.
Oh, Lucius?
Yeah.
He's still alive. He's 83. He's the only there's two surviving principal cast members of the Planet of the Apes, and he's one.
Yeah, how is the girl played Nova? Is she dead? Because she's really young in this, right?
I don't know. Let me look. Linda Harrison? Yep, she's the last one. She's 70. Wow, she's 78 now. Holy shit. She was 16 in this movie. God. Huh. So yeah, those were the last two.
Huh.
I thought that everyone was dead.
Yeah. No, it's not quite World War I yet.
No, not yet.
And what I mean by that is that everyone in World War I is now dead.
Yeah, nobody left. That's why you can make like All Quiet on the Western Front and have a techno soundtrack because there's like no one to dispute it. It's like, yeah, we were into that stuff back
then. So we have Act 1. We got a spaceship flying through space. George Taylor, played by Charlton Heston, is logging an entry about like the progress of their mission. The rest of the crew's in cryosleep.
And he's having a space smoke. I love smoking in space. Like those are some amazing systems on those ships.
I wrote down what the instruments say: Earth time 2673, ship time 1972, which means they left in 1972, and they're at near speed light, and now it's 2673 on Earth.
Yeah. And it's like, well, he just gave up everything and left. Yeah, because what's that near light time dilations?
Theory? Yeah, theory. Yeah, it's like theory of relativity. So
yeah,
E equals mc squared.
Be true.
I forget how the equation works. It's something with E equals mc squared, but you like throw time in there, or maybe because c is in that equation, c is a constant. C is the speed of light.
Yeah.
Which I think maybe you can divert time out of. Anyways, I forget my physics class. We use that equation to figure things out. And the fun thing there is if you happen to go faster than the speed of light in this equation, you would go backwards in time, which is where that stuff comes from. But, that's also like where Star Trek gets its stuff from, because it's, how can it end up in the same place without this time dilation? It's like, well, because it's not technically going faster than the speed of light. It's going into subspace and doing magic and going somehow magically going faster than the speed of light by going into a separate universe that's smaller than them or something like that.
No, no,
Oh.
it's using a gravity drive. It's basically doing the same thing
Oh yeah, wormhole stuff. Yeah. Okay.
they were trying to do in Event Horizon.
Yeah.
That's why it's called a warp drive, because it's creating a gravity field and you're shooting yourself through it. You're warping space time, which but you're but you're also using and the weirdest concept in Star Trek is inertial dampening. It's like, yeah, how can you go 8 billion miles a second and then stop all of a sudden? Like, wouldn't every cell in your body just explode? It's like, well, no, it's inertial dampening. It's like, well, how does that work? Oh, it shunts the inertia into another universe. It's like, is that just a universe of pain? The inertia just bouncing around, killing everyone. Is that where like the pinhead people from Hellraiser are from? It's like we're from the inertial dampening universe, where atoms are being smashed constantly.
There's an even worse universe than the mirror universe, where it's like way more evil and unrepenting.
Didn't they do that in like the what was the one that no, no, that was something different. Never mind. That was a two-dimensional universe. Never mind. We're getting way off track here.
Here he explains like time passing at near light speeds and how like how little time passes for them, but a lot of time passes around them. Which I always remember that I got introduced to that concept from Ender's Game, but that was like people just talking about it. Even I didn't even read it then. So, would that come out in like the 80s or 70s or something?
80s, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, but here this is 68, so the concept must have been around or people must have been putting that concept into fiction for a while. But,
yeah.
But people still stay away from it because it's too hard to get your head around. Where it's like, oh, they're traveling to another planet, and basically everyone they left behind is dead, and everyone they're going to is new. So, yeah, let's not put that in our fiction.
Yeah, that's like these are some hard men and women going into space. Like, goodbye, everyone. You'll be dust by the time I get back. Yeah, just that last hug at the boarding gate like takes on a whole new dimension when you're like traveling through time, and it's like you won't know if I make it to the other side because you'll be dead.
Although it was weird, like reading the book where it's like a lot of the concepts where I thought like the Expanse made it clear about how like you build a spaceship like it's a tower, and so like the acceleration becomes the gravity, and then the whole like flip and burns like, well, you got to get to this point, and then you need to like you spend the other half of your time decelerating. And that's in the book. I was like, oh wow, so they had all this down way before way before I knew. But okay, so this isn't new.
Yeah, I think the fastest they're going in the Expanse is was it like 5% the speed of light?
Yeah, they're not good. I mean, yeah, the magic in the Expanse, well, besides other stuff, alien stuff, is the was it the Epstein
drive?
Epstein drive?
I bet you they were so like, damn, we need to come up with another name.
The Epstein drive has a magical way of just it never stops accelerating, so that like it's so it works out in your favor. It's still like you have to expend fuel. It's not infinite and stuff like that, but it is like
it's minuscule, yeah.
But for
drop a pellet in and it's good for like 10 years.
But for travel between planets, it's like, yeah, we can do this.
Now, the really cool one is you get into Revelation Space, like that universe. That gets wild because they never go faster than light in Revelation Space.
Yeah.
Because the guy who wrote it's like he's a physicist. And it's like
but he does do stuff like that where it's like, oh, here's the two books. It's like, are they related? Yeah. It's like, why are they 15,000 years apart? It's like, because that's how this works.
Because there they have the light huggers. And which goes right up to C. It's called near C acceleration, but they do that through something called the conjoiner drive, which when you find out how that works, it's like, oh, that's dark as hell. Because it basically takes a human mind has to be enslaved in it. The conjoiners, because the conjoiners are a group in Revelation Space, but you have to enslave their mind. And then their mind is constantly doing the quantum calculations to keep those two drives because they have to operate in parallel because one's opening a door into one universe and a door to another, and they're pulling in like dark energy and shit. I guess it's all like theoretical stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you find out, it's like, oh yeah, the way a conjoiner drive works is a human mind is installed in there permanently, and all it does is math. Like it has no personality or anything. It's just a wiped mind that does math, and it's like, why couldn't a computer do that? And it's like, oh, they're not efficient enough because in that universe, like human brains are so wildly upscaled with like nano machinery and stuff. It's like you'd never build a computer that would work that well for some reason. But
Yeah.
yeah, and like the light huggers, it's just they're giant darts of ice because they're going so fast. Well, they don't have like navigational deflectors in Star Trek. They just freeze ice, so when a meteorite hits them, it doesn't destroy the whole ship. And, yeah, but those people are weird because they're like the what are they called the the ultranauts instead of astronauts, and yeah, they go into hibernation for 15 years because that's how long it takes to travel between two stars or whatever, and they're all insane too, and it's a crazy universe. It has nothing to do with this. But
Yeah, Phil, we're talking about near light speed travel and science fiction and stuff like that. What happens? How do they deal with it? I heard a weird thing about that.
Revelation Space is essentially a more advanced, darker, and more complicated expanse with less relatable characters. But the reason the characters are less relatable is you got one book with them and then you're usually done because like hundreds of years have passed because people are still going between the stars. And,
I saw a science article that like I had no idea what the hell it was talking about. It was talking about how like gravitation, the power of gravity is one of the lesser forces in the universe. It was saying it has lesser force than high force. I'm like, the fuck is high force? It has lesser force than low force. The fuck is low force? And then another force that the gravity's lesser than. So it's like, oh, what the hell is this shit?
yeah, it's like I've got like a average IQ. I can't grasp this stuff.
Well, I've never heard of it before, so I don't really know what the hell they're talking about.
They have weird names for things because, like, you hear like an earthquake prediction, and like when you learn about the Richter scale and how like, oh, each point on the Richter scale is not like, oh, that's not upgrading it 10%. That's upgrading it 100% at every point. And then you learn like what strong motion is. It's like, okay, that sounds strong motion. That's an earthquake, right? No, that's the energy before an earthquake. It's like, okay. Well, why is it called strong motion? Because it anticipates motion of tectonic plates. And it's like, okay, explain that. It's like, well, when all this, there's so many things going on when tectonic plates come together, we just generically call it that because we need a word like 50 characters long to describe everything that's happening. Like, magneto-magma displacement. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, strong motion, gotcha. And I don't even know if I'm describing that right. It's one of those things like, it's like stuff that's going on this planet that we're not studying through a telescope. I can't understand. But earthquake stuff, we can get into like fluid dynamics and all that, and like fluid dynamics of water is insanely complicated math, let alone when you're talking about like molten metal and rock. Because not only is that like with water, there's like magnetics pull doesn't come into it, but it does with molten nickel. It's like, magnetics are also a force here, and Satan says begin. Jesus. Okay.
George expresses his loneliness, and then he shoots up some drugs. These are sleeping drugs. No, he's not just doing some heroin here.
He's taking horse before the big sleep, which would be weird.
He pauses to look at the sleeping crew, and then he buckles into his pod and lowers the window to his cryo sarcophagus. Because he even like sleeps with his hands crossed. It's like, nobody does that. Like, you're doing that for effect, bro.
Yeah. That doesn't even happen in real life when I'm sleeping 8 hours. 1,000 years. Like, can you imagine the cramps?
And we cut to titles. We get Charlton Heston in Planet of the Apes.
Anyway, I was talking about the composer Jerry Goldsmith. They were kind of told to go wild with the soundtrack for this.
Yeah.
So what they did was they played horns without the mouthpiece on them.
Okay.
Well, those real discordant like horn sounds. That was because they were playing horns without the mouthpiece, and they were also putting them through like an early, basically a phase multi-track recorder from that era, which was like experimental at that time.
Yeah.
And the sounds you hear, they're using whisks in metal mixing bowls and putting it through some kind of synthesizer, and it's like that's so they're basically said lose your mind. So the soundtrack, even though it was written by a composer, is actually more Foley work than music. It's kind of weird. It's like,
Yeah, but it's arranged, so
yeah,
that
it's
it's
arranged
art.
Foley.
Yeah, there's the titles of like it's a title sequence of like stars and stuff in space. And already filmed in Panavision, which I'm ready to see
Yep.
that all over. Which I think it just means it was filmed in anamorphic.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure if I've explained what that is. do you know what anamorphic means when it's filmed anamorphic?
Yeah, isn't it like just like a wide array lens?
Yeah, but it like
Uh,
it films it like essentially widescreen. It gets a wider image, but
yeah.
it crams it and distorts it into the same width of the film space.
Okay.
So if you just look at the negative, it'd look all weird and crammed. But then when you project it with the same anamorphic lenses, it just projects normally how it was shot.
Oh, okay.
It's the magic of anamorphic lenses. It made a lot of like CGI, early CGI, like really hard to do because accounting for how the anamorphic stretch was nearly impossible.
Yeah.
Which is why Cameron shot Terminator 2 on Super 35 rather than on anamorphic.
Oh, okay.
So if you look at it, it's like it's widescreen, but it's not the widest screen that was coming out at that time. Also, a fun thing with anamorphic lenses, like I think it's Die Hard because Big Tiernan loves to shoot anamorphic. When you get lens flares, they aren't a sphere. They're like oblong. They're like ovals because
Oh, okay.
that's the shape of the lens.
They're reflecting the curvature of the lens more
Yes.
correctly. Okay. Okay.
Which is another fun thing in Panic Room, which I learned from the director's commentary. There's a part where like she's flashing a light to try to get a signal to somebody like across the way, and I guess they digitally made that light like an anamorphic lens.
Huh.
Which is something like nobody would ever notice, but I guess it was just a fun thing for like Fincher and his effects team or whatever.
Yeah, they're just like, let's go wild here.
Because I think it was
Some
shot
horns
in.
without mouthpieces.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing was is I think it was shot in anamorphic, but the light effect was a CGI effect, and so technically they wouldn't have to do it with the anamorphic distortion, but they just want the extra step to do it that way because it's like, well, if we actually shot this, this is how it would have looked. So,
Oh, okay.
which that's
But that's
fun.
okay because all the effects in this movie are practical.
um, I don't know. I'm doing Arnold. It's almost kind of embarrassing considering what 2001 Space Odyssey came out a year later, but
Yeah.
you can't compare people to Kubrick. It's just unfair. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a whole different thing. And also this is, it's a different kind of story.
yeah.
Well, never forget that like Damnation Alley and Star Wars came out the same time for the same money.
Oh, what's Damnation Alley? I don't think I've heard
Oh,
of
it's
that.
the one with George Papard where they're driving the apocalypse vehicle through the post-nuclear America.
Huh.
Um, and it used a lot of weird like lens and camera effects, which was what made it so expensive. But really, it looks like a TV movie for the most part. But it
Oh.
does have a couple neat trucks in it. And yeah, just look at it. It's a goofy, apocalypse movie called Damnation Alley. Because who else is in it? George Papard and the guy from Airwolf, he's in it too. And the guy who Captain Terrell from Star Trek is in it. That's the guy who shot himself in Wrath of Khan.
Oh, okay.
Captain of the Reliant, he's in it. But yeah, both those movies came out the same time, same money, completely different results.
We got
One of
shot.
them you heard of, one of them you haven't.
Yeah, exactly. I never knew it existed, and I'm like the film guy.
Yeah.
I
get into a lot of really weird, obscure sci-fi shit too.
Yeah.
So.
We got shots of a spinning sky and the sound of rockets. Here that they're simulating the space crash, but they don't have the budget or the time to film a space crash, or else they filmed one and it looked terrible, so they just did this instead.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie has a very TV show quality to it,
Yeah,
even for the time.
yeah. That's why I said it's like an expensive episode of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Which I guess all episodes of Star Trek were expensive. So.
Oh yeah, that's why it got canceled. It was known to be popular at the time. They didn't know how popular, but it was just like, yeah, this is too expensive.
Yeah, they only regretted it when they put it in reruns and it basically got the same ratings as when it was in production. They're like,
Yeah.
oh crap.
Well, the only reason they didn't bring it back like 2 years later was they still couldn't get the cost. As a matter of, they'd be like, no, the expectations would be higher. It would cost more. So it's like, oh, we can't do this. And plus, there's some tender flakiness around. You know, there's a lot of flakiness around Star Trek too, especially that time in Star Trek's history because everyone's fighting over the the relevance of it. It's like, whoa, hold on, guys. Let's get out of our own asses for a second. Entertain the people.
Yeah, they simulate the ship crashing. I wrote or landing. I don't know. Do you think the ship crashed in the water or just landed in the water?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what happened to the ship because it shot out of the time space hole,
Yeah.
and then it like seemed to be going through a normal like planetary reentry. But I don't know what they were expecting because it was kind of built into it. There's going to be a big time difference here. So the Earth we come back to, it's like, was it just trying to land at its home field, and now that was a lake, or did it suffer some kind of damage? It's kind of indicated there might have been some damage because after the ship crashes, of course, one of the people didn't make it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and also, yeah, the ultimate reveal is that they went to the wrong spot. 'Cause, the whole time
Yeah.
you're supposed to think they went to an entirely different planet. So.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Oh yeah, the pods are released. Everyone has a beard, except for Stuart, who is mummified. She was the one lady. we gave we gave the most
One
ladies.
lady to three guys. It's like that's the opposite of the Strangelove equation.
Another woman in this movie that has no lines.
Yeah.
The ship starts sinking in the water, which, I mean, it looks like the end of the ship is cool looking as it sinks in the water, but then it just makes you speculate, like, what's the rest of the ship look like?
Yeah.
And how did it land like this? Did it back into it? Because the video makes it look like they landed and this back end started sinking. Like, I don't know.
There's a YouTube video you can see. It's like Planet of the Apes original, like special effect, how the crash happened.
Yeah.
And it actually like, oh, okay, that's cool. Makes the ship look a little smaller than I thought it was, but it's like
okay.
that. It kind of shows like a not quite the captain or what's it called the Miracle on the Hudson, the guy that landed the plane and didn't like cartwheel it around because he landed like perfectly in the water.
Yeah.
It was kind of a crash like that. But then of course, like, the water's just going to crush it and come pouring in, so we got to get out.
Yeah, I heard something the other day. People talk about when we watched The Gray, and there was that one guy talking about the plane crashes and how, like, if you you tuck your head between your legs, like, you'll just like break your spine or something like that. And then I read something where they talking about, like, no, really, like the like a car crash. Oh, what was it? Something like you don't want to tense up for a car crash, but you want to for an airplane crash or something like that. But it was something about, like, a car crash is like an immediate stop, or like the thing about a plane crash is usually if you have stuff to guide the plane and crash it in a more controlled manner, the thing you're worried about is just debris and people and everything flying around you, not necessarily like the impact of the crash.
Yeah, you can shrug that inertia off in a plane crash by rumbling along the ground. Where a car, it's like 60 to 0.
Yeah.
Just do the math on that. If you weigh 200 pounds, it's like, the universe is you're gonna go to that Star Trek inertia universe for a few seconds.
So it's more of the plane, not necessarily like the sudden stop. It's the blender of a of a crash that happens to you.
Yeah,
and fire and all and smoke. And
it's
all
the metal flying around in the stewardess's head that's what's gonna kill you.
Let's see here. The ship starts sinking in the water. They need to get, like, atmospheric readings to see if it's safe to go outside. So, that's some good sci-fi stuff. It's like, yeah, we can't just escape. It's like we gotta know if we can live out there. Which I think in any case they all probably should have grabbed a spacesuit, but I understand why spend the money to do that when you can just spend the effort having the guy go look at a router with some bleeping lights on it and be like, yeah, it's cool out there.
Oh, we didn't land on the nitrogen planet.
They try to send a distress signal out, but it's not working. They abandoned ship. You get a little shot here. It says Earth time 3978. So it's been about 300 years since they've left. Or no, way longer than that. Yeah. It was 300 years before. It was 300 years between the last time he was awake, and Earth time. But yeah, they left in 72. So yeah, it's like 2,000 years later. Got Dodge, played by Jeff Burton, which I just wrote that in there. He has some interesting credits for. Seemed like he did some blaxploitation movies where he was like in Coffee. He was in one. It was called like, oh, what was it? It's like, I was like Night Ladies, but then its alternate title is just Black Hooker.
Oh yeah, those blaxploitation films with weird names.
So yeah, Dodge throws out a life raft, and Landon, played by Robert Gunner, and George, or I guess I call him Taylor later on. They hop in the thing and they get out of there. The ship sinks as they paddle away. We cut to them like they're paddling through a cavern, which just looks really cool. They basically just, where is this, like New Mexico or something? I mean, it just, it's a good place. It's basically like they went and shot a Western, but it just happened to be a sci-fi
it's
movie.
In California, actually.
Oh, okay.
Well, the outdoor stuff probably is, yeah.
Okay.
The rest of it's like a studio.
They're trying to guess like what planet they're on based on like the color of the star. Because in the book, they go to Betelgeuse, which is red. Which I guess if you did a direct adaptation, that would be kind of interesting to have like a more red-hued like color to your film because of a giant red star.
It's on Mars.
But here, like the one guy's like, they're trying to guess what it is. It's like, it's too white to be, like I can't remember what planet they're guessing or star system they're guessing. They land on a shore.
Okay,
And
California, Utah, and Arizona. You're right. Okay.
Okay. They prep their gear. George starts like prepping sensors and stuff to get some data. Landon's like daydreaming. They've been away from Earth.
He has like a Colt hammerless revolver from like World War II. But they left Earth in the 70s, so
yeah,
they must have assumed a big tech jump between when they filmed this and the
So they kind of take off in an arbitrary direction. Just basically, it's like, well, we don't know where we're going. Like, I'll just go where my nose is.
It's weird that Taylor, Landon, and Dodge seem to have this kind of combative dialogue, because Landon's like really not happy about like, I don't know where we are. I don't know where everyone is. It's like he seemed upset that they weren't there, but like this was all baked into like, well, we knew like when we left we weren't coming back to anything. It's like we're basically going to come back to Earth as savages. That was Taylor's things. Like, yeah, if the Earth isn't wildly better when we go back, then we're really screwed. It's like we're just going to come back as savages. And Landon seems to be like really down about this whole thing, which is kind of weird. It's like, didn't everyone understand this when they went on this mission? But I guess they have to have some kind of tension.
Yeah, but I don't know. Weirdly, in the book, it's just kind of like this guy came up with a ship that could go near light speed, and this basically was a test run. Here it seems like there was a committee to like, we're gonna go forward with humanity, and like we're gonna select the not the worst of us, but like the skeptical of us to send on a mission.
Our mission to send the most cynical astronauts we can find into space in time.
I don't know. Dodge seems cool. He just seems like the big dirt like nerd of the group. It's like, yeah, I just want
Yeah,
to put
Dodge is like the
sense.
scientist
Yeah,
guy. Like, I
he's
want to
actually.
learn about this.
Yeah. He's like the only one actually doing science, which like you never know. Like, Taylor's an astronaut, but what degrees does he have? It just seems to be snark is his whole thing.
So, what'd you major in college? Oh, it's like aeronautical engineering and like stoicism. It's like those are like some weird like combination degree of.
Always like that in The Martian, where it's like his thing was he had like a degree in like botany and something else, and even though like compared to everybody else, he's a genius, but compared to everybody on his crew, like he's the janitor.
Yeah,
Like he's the dumbest person on the crew, so he does like the crappiest work.
well, you're the shit mechanic. Like I have two PhDs from like schools. It's like, well, not as good as mine.
Well, that's a real interesting dichotomy. So,
Oh yeah,
um, the dumb, yeah, the dumbest kid in gifted class.
yeah, the lowest heaven of PhD. Like you're more educated than 99% of the people on the planet. However, in your own caste, you're the bottom. And you're the ship mechanic, or what? I like the term in Red Planet. The only good thing about Red Planet was what was he called? What did he call himself? The space janitor.
Oh, does he say that there too? Oh, okay. That I must maybe crossed those.
No. It's also in that, but in
Okay.
Martian's actually a good movie. The Red Planet's dumb except for like kind of the performance of Val Kilmer was interesting. It's like I'm basically the space janitor. You guys are all the big brains.
Yeah.
He's the only one who survives because of his sarcasm and like Russian probes that never took off. I don't know.
Let's. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Landon plants a tiny little flag next to the shore to the amusement of George. He like laughs like he's a killer in a movie. uh, so they travel through the desert. Um, they're like avoiding natural disasters. There's like lightning, but it doesn't have rain. There's like rocks that roll at them. It's very Star Trek.
Giant rocks that seem to be like strategically rolling at them.
Like, are they sentient? No.
It's slow enough not to be dangerous, but large enough to be threatening. Yeah, I like the lightning. It's just like the whole sky lights up, but there's no like visible lightning.
Yeah.
It's like clear air lightning or something.
Yeah, they basically just like they have like a matte painting of the sky and they just turn it into a negative for a bit. That's all they do here. It's fine. It works.
Yeah, it's cool. It's weird. It's an alien planet, right?
Well, here's the thing that's interesting. Like Dodge comments on like these weird weather phenomenon, basically being like, these are unlike Earth, not knowing it is Earth. But he also says something about there being no moon, which is like, what the fuck happened to the moon? They never explain that.
Yeah. You think there would be like something, these things would be really different without that.
Well, I don't think I've ever heard of the no moon thing in any of the Planet of the Apes fiction. Like this is the first time I remember that being a concept brought up. I don't remember it in any other place.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. I don't. But yeah, I never thought of it. So maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just a throwaway line that like made it through.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm only guessing. I don't know.
Well, I mean, because whenever you think of moon, you just immediately think of Seven Eves.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, did the apocalypse come about because a moon crashed onto the Earth or something?
Was made of cheese. Damn it! You ruined it all.
It burned up in the atmosphere.
God, it's a lie.
Here's where also like Taylor is making fun of Landon because I guess he was just like a golden boy where it's like, he's like the star quarterback and from rich parents and like, hey, I thought they're gonna build a bronze statue of you. He's like, yeah, right now it's all getting it's all getting weathered and green. Foreshadowing.
Oh yeah.
I guess I don't know. Um, George says he's a seeker. They're like he says there has to be something better than the universe than man. So that's kind of his only like. Okay, he's an explorer. He's just a great. But he doesn't seem necessarily like. I guess the dichotomy with him, he doesn't like people, and by the end of the movie, he kind of has to be like he has to like stand up for people and try to like stand up for their rights and maybe bring human back to like some sort of civilization.
Yeah, I can't stand anyone, but now I'm their representative.
Yeah. Dodge spots like a plant growing. And he's like life. So they dig it up all together, which is weird.
Yeah, so just carrying this plant around through the desert. I was like, what are they gonna do with this thing?
But it gives them hope because like they've also mentioned like we got 3 days of food left, and so like if we don't find anything by then, we're all dead.
Yeah,
So
they're kind of like that's a real countdown too because it's just food. They don't mention water. This guy, because yeah, you can stretch food. It's not like it's like, well, it's been 72 hours, time to die. But water, it's like, no, you can't stretch things.
Well, they hide in some shadow after the rocks come after them, and they're like water check, and like a guy goes 8 ounces, and they like no, they just say no to both of it. So yeah, not a lot of water left. That's like half a bottle. That's like half a Dasani. They have between three of them.
I've drank more booze than that since the podcast began. So. Yeah, it's not a lot.
My own water check.
Yeah.
1 gallon of black iced tea. So yeah, they're starting to move through the desert mountains, and people start following, but they don't notice them. So they find some figures made of straw. George hears
crucified humans.
Yeah, but they call them scarecrows. That's essentially what it's supposed to be. Like I think that the humans built them because they have like kind of like sort of animal pelts on them, so I think they think it might scare the apes, but absolutely doesn't.
Yeah.
Or the apes put it there for reasons. I don't know. Maybe that's marking the like forbidden zone or
that could be.
But George hears the sounds of running water, and so he starts running towards it. He's like, I know what that is, and it's a waterfall. So they all strip naked and like run into the water, which I wasn't expecting out of this movie. A lot of man ass going around.
Oh yeah, well, that was okay. It doesn't mean anything. There's nothing sexual about that in the
system. No. But, you don't see it a lot. But it's the '60s, so I guess nobody would have cared at the time. It's like, yeah, who isn't naked all the time?
Yeah.
We have to create these new diseases for everyone, so people in the '90s can lament our time of freedom and joy.
Yeah.
But then they find footprints that aren't their own, so they're like, huh. And then some scavengers like are off in the distance, and they steal their clothes and equipment, and they start giving them chase. So they do cleverly shoot it here so that like you don't immediately know it's humans. It's like you've already seen the title. It says Planet of the Apes, so you would be immediately expecting apes to be showing up, and it's not apes. So they're running through the forest, and they find some of their equipment broken and their clothes torn. The astronauts cobble together some of their clothes. Like George just has like, I don't know, he just has like some kind of like blanket with a hole in it, like that's at least Taylor has some pants that are probably his.
Yeah.
And then there's a primal scream of echoes. That they stand by and observe like the primitive humans there as they're foraging for food. Here George says is that they're mute because they're not talking to each other or anything like that. They're just kind of like looking around and eating fruit.
And Taylor's like, well, if this is the best they got, we'll be running this place in a week. Making plans.
Then there's a primal scream that echoes throughout the valley, and then the primitives start running away, and the astronauts follow after them. There's like they end up in like kind of crop area. I'm not sure what kind of crop it is, like either wheat or corn or something.
I thought it was corn because of the height.
Yeah, it's stock. There's probably other crops that are stocky like that. But yeah, I'm. It didn't exactly look like corn to me because it was more like, I don't know, greenish. But it just could be early stalks for corn. So
Oh,
um,
so I just found out corn was really big grass once, and that kind of freaked me out. It's like, oh,
uh,
it is. It's just giant grass.
um, but like there's the sticks protruding above the thing. They're just like smacking down and scaring the primitive people away. And then there's apes on horses show up, and they have guns, and they're firing on the fleeing humans. So this is the introduction of like, hey, here's some apes. They got guns and they got horses. So clearly evolved past the
And they're
humans
wearing
here.
like medieval looking leather armor.
Yeah.
Too.
Um, which in the Tim Burton one, they do a better job just because they have more resources of like separating all the different like apes.
Yeah.
Because here, all the guys that are guards and stuff and kind of wearing black uniforms, the guys basically look like Klingons here.
Yeah.
They're gorillas, and then the people in green uniforms, they're chimpanzees, and the people in orange uniforms are the orangutans.
Yeah. So the gorillas are like the proletariat. The chimpanzees are like the outer party members, and the orangutans, that's the inner party members.
Yeah.
That's the caste system of the ape universe.
But I think there's like more chimpanzees than everybody else, but they kind of like are because they're stifled by the orangutans because they just have all the power. At least in the book, I'm not sure here.
So should I answer a phone call on the podcast from mainland China? That doesn't sound like a
I've
call
been getting stuff from China too. That's
Yeah,
weird.
they must like our podcast.
um. So yeah, they're like either shooting humans or they're capturing with nets. A bunch of people are getting caught up in nets. George outwits some of the apes. Well, that's actually kind of fun in this movie. How many times, how hard it is to just throw a net on somebody because they miss him a lot with nets.
Yeah, the apes are not super dexterous in this movie. It's weird because, like in real life, they would. Well, actually, they're not very dexterous in real life.
It's almost like you have a human with like 10 pounds of makeup on their face.
Yeah. Their hands don't work well, and they have weird rifles too. The rifles are.
Are those real things, or is that something they made?
Yeah,
for
they're
the movie?
M1 or they're M1 carbines with like weird wood inserts over them.
Oh, okay.
So basically, it's like a rifle. Oh, the prop version is like there's almost no metal except the barrel, and it's all wood. It's like even the magazine receiver is wood. And then, but some of them get like they look different, but yeah, they're all basically M1 carbines that are just redressed.
Yeah, because it looks like something like it looked like it was built around something because the stocks look unusually thick.
Yeah.
Landon is like knocked in the head and then throw off a cliff into some water, so that's not good for him. Dodge gets shot and killed. So yeah, you're
He
one
got
black
shot
guy.
in the back of the head. Like,
I was more like, I don't know, like when they show a wound on him later on, it's on his neck. But,
oh, okay.
I don't know. He also gets shot like 4 times. It wasn't just once. So I don't know. These are 60s deaths, and this is like, I don't even know what rating this movie is, but it's not R. So
No,
pretty
it's
sure it's not R.
probably G, maybe PG. I'm not sure.
I'm guessing PG, but I don't
Probably
know.
PG.
Well, one of the trivia I read is like apparently Charlton Heston had to argue over the use of "goddamn" and not getting a higher rating.
Oh, okay.
Which that seems weird compared to the violence and like kind of partial nudity in the movie. But, that's the thing about like standards and stuff like that is that they change over time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because in some ways, movies nowadays are way more violent than this movie is, but are way less like sexualized.
Yeah, there's a lot less. Yeah, movies nowadays are more sterile in some ways, and even the
Yeah.
violence they have is like quick. Like the camera never holds on violence really very much nowadays.
Well, unless it's like that's what the
Well,
movie's about.
Yeah, unless it's just like a killer movie. But yeah. Like war movies now, it's like the people just die, like they just
Yeah.
fall over. They don't like grab their chest and like red blood pours out, unless it's Saving Private Ryan, then just like
Yeah.
bits and pieces of
But yeah,
everyone.
but most movies are PG-13, and like you can have all the gunfire, just none of the gore.
Yeah,
um, let's see here. Yeah, Dodge gets shot and killed. Taylor also takes a shot to the throat, but he just passes out on the beach rather than immediately dying. But again, that was the only shot he took. Um, and then we cut to like the living, the dead are like gathered up. Taylor's like put in a cage, coach like on the back, or they have like a horse coach or whatever, or horse and carriage.
wagon. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I hear some apes take a photo of their hunt and like they're having a good old time. So
Yeah, like they're standing on corpses stacked
Yeah.
up, and they're like taking pictures with old timey cameras, like the what do they call those? I know a friend of
is
mine
that
that does pictures.
lithograph or what is that? I can't remember.
Yeah, there's a name for those kind of cameras. It's just a giant plate
Yeah.
that you like set the camera up, you open it up and expose it, and then close it. But it's like you do it with your hand, so you got to leave it open a certain amount of time. And you can also like move those cameras and take like wide pano shots as they're exposed too. There's a name for them, range finding camera. I don't know, something like
Huh.
that. I don't remember.
So
I
that
had, to,
being
I had to provide security for a shoot in Detroit they were doing with those cameras because they're really old, they're really expensive, and you know most people were cool there. They're like, "Hey, can you come along, Nathan?" It's like, "Cool, yeah, I want to learn about this camera." It's like, "Yeah, we want you to learn about it, but really, it's because we know you have license to carry a gun. That's why we need you on this camera thing." It's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can do that
you
too."
need to protect a bit of history.
Yep.
So have that being the end of Act 1, because we finally seen the apes and we've killed off 2 of our main characters.
Yeah, everyone's dying. These movies are known for their upbeat nature. They're very fun movies.
So we have Act 2, and we got an ape is tending to Taylor. A lady ape comes in looking for like the one with the weird clothes. There's an argument amongst the apes about who gets like a budget, and there's like racism amongst the different apes because basically, it's like the chimpanzees like seem to be doing a lot of the science, but the science can only like go further if the orangutans approve a budget for it. So
Yeah.
which is not stuff I was expecting out of this movie, but makes it interesting. It's like, oh yeah, they're apes, but they have exactly the same problems that every society does.
Yeah.
Taylor is
We
locked in
haven't reached post scarcity yet.
a.
Of course, neither have we. So
Taylor's locked in a cage. Dr. Zira comes in looking at Taylor, calling him bright eyes, which that's something new to hear. There was another term in the book, I don't think. Or maybe the translation was never picked up on it. Oh, what was the other things? I can't remember. The humans are reaching out for the cages and like because they know like she has treats, and so if they do that, they'll get treats, and so she gives them sugar cubes. Taylor can't talk because of his throat injury, so he tries grabbing Zira's pen and paper, but the guard like knocks him back. Goes in and beats him up a bit. Or is no? That's later. Oh no, I don't know. There's a lot of times this guy
he
goes in
uses
and
his
beats
broom to push him back this
Okay.
time.
Dr. Zayas. Oh wait, no. Yeah. Dr. Zayas shows up and then he just dismisses Taylor as not because Taylor's like trying to talk, and so they see that like he's opening his mouth and like moving, but just words aren't coming out. And they're like, "Oh, he's trying to talk," and then Dr. Zayas sees this is like, "Oh, he's just mimicking." Like that's what all humans do. They don't know how to like think for themselves.
Which is weird because how these costumes that these actors are wearing move. It's like,
You
no, it's
can't-
like, you look like you're the one mimicking.
Yeah.
But it's just the limits of what they could do. I guess a lot of actors passed on this movie when they found out the time it would take to apply the prosthetics and where
Yeah.
they'd be filming. Because it's like, oh, that's just hot hell. Like we're not
Yeah.
interested in that.
Even though these prosthetics and makeup kind of look silly now, this was cutting edge at the time.
Oh yeah, this is actually for what they're trying to do and when they're doing it. It's good. It wouldn't be good now. But for
No.
the time, it's like that's not terrible because you can actually see the actor's eyes. They can kind of project and emote
Yeah.
a little bit. It's like, oh, I'm not totally taken out of this. Like, oh, okay.
But it is more than just them like throwing a mask over their face. It is a whole process, and it sucks. But it,
Yeah, I've watched. There's like Behind the Planet of the Apes. It was like the making of documentary, and it shows like it's like a two-piece thing that's put on and then painted, and I guess the wigs are really hot. Like they're just like designed to retain heat.
yeah, and who knows what terrible chemicals they're using at the time to adhere that to them. So
Just lead, just
yeah,
like with lead.
why'd you put lead in glue? Like I don't know, because we could. We had to make it heavier.
Just hey, we made this new stuff called super glue. We're gonna put this appliance on your face with it.
Um. So yeah. Here, Dr. Zaius just kind of suggests vivisecting Taylor for research and killing like a whole lot of them. It's like they're good for nothing. I don't know. It'd probably be better and more sinister if like human was on the menu, but you never. But they never show them like them eating humans or anything like that. So
That would be like that would be like a form of cannibalism. Like it would be really close to.
yeah.
And also, people don't taste very good, I guess.
Yeah, but they are hunting them. But like, I guess is more of
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
just
purely
kind of
to
like
kill
taking your
them.
dog out to kill rats. It's like, it's just fun. Eat these animals. Just tear it apart. Go to town.
Dr. Zira throws a young woman, Nova. You'll find her name later, but I just know her from the book. Into his cage. Is like, yeah, Nova's like some sort of gift to Taylor. Is like for mimicking like words.
Yeah.
I guess like she's a bit more developed in the book because as an internal monologue and stuff. It's also like their relationship's like almost sadder because you just realize like she's just an animal that looks like a human.
Yeah, it's like I'm not gonna like teach her anything or like civilize her in any way.
But he gets her pregnant in the book, and then like they have a baby, and then he's like kind of hopeful. It's like, yeah, we're gonna re-energize humanity, which is just seems more sad than it is like a victory.
It's a long march program there. It'll take a while.
Then we cut to Taylor's like observing from an outdoor cage because I guess they got to give him some sunlight or whatever.
Yeah.
Dr. Zira is showing off Taylor to her boyfriend Cornelius. Taylor starts writing in the sand because like, oh yeah, this will convince him. And then Dr. Zaius comes by, and Taylor ends up like fighting with people in the cage because like they start erasing his writings, and he's like, no, don't do that. This is my freedom. And then there ends up being a big fight. Dr. Zira is like trying to like talking about like, no, it's like her whole thing. She's like trying to domesticate humans. Like, yeah, we're on the verge of making this possible. Like, yeah, pets at home, they can do things. And then as everyone's distracted by the fighting and Dr. Zira's like work, Dr. Zaius sees the writing on the ground and erases it. So he's like,
this guy knows more than what he's saying.
Yeah. Because you can, in the first scene with him, he's like, you can see where his like, where he sees like he's not buying that it's a sentient life. It's like, nah, it's just mimicry. But this scene, it's like, oh, he knows.
Yeah, he knows more than what he's saying.
Yeah, he knows the. Well, that's also the thing in the book. In the book, what's way different also is that like the apes don't speak English or write in English.
Yeah.
And so he has to spend a lot of time just like figuring that out, how to talk to him. Because there's no like, in the book, there's nothing where he like can't talk. It's just like when he does, they don't know what he's saying.
Yeah, he's from another galaxy or solar system or whatever.
Yeah. Let's see. Then we cut to Taylor's getting put in his cage again. Here he grabs the notes and pen and paper from. He grabs the pen and paper from Zira, and he writes "My name is Taylor" on it. But he gets beaten up by the guard, and then when the guard brings the pen and paper back to Zira, she sees the note. She's like, he is. It's like, my God, he is intelligent.
Yeah. Too bad you just beat his head in with a club.
Then we cut to like it's at Zira's house, and Zira and Cornelius are like testing Taylor, and Cornelius is doubtful of like Taylor's intelligence because all he can do is write down like. Which you figure like he's writing whole sentences here that like he's got to be intelligent. He's like, nah, it's just a trick. it's,
Yeah,
it's a sleight of hand.
it's a Chinese box. He's just hearing our sounds and writing things out that he thinks we makes sense. It's not real sentience.
He's
Yeah,
the original
no,
large language learning module.
yeah, that's what it is. What are you talking about, Cornelius? We haven't invented computers yet. It's like, oh, shit. That's something else Zayas is keeping from
us. Taylor makes a paper airplane and he throws it, which they hear Cornelius talks about like apes say flight is a scientific impossibility, but he throws it to demonstrate his journey, or Taylor throws it to demonstrate his journey like with a spaceship, which is actually completely wrong because that flying an airplane is completely different from space travel. But anyways, you get the idea.
Yeah.
Cornelius
like take the paper airplane, put it in a bell jar, suck all
yeah,
the oxygen out, and then like, well, there's no really resistance in there, so we need to use either chemical or some kind of energy explosion underneath it. But,
yeah, if I'm learning stuff about HVAC, I'm still like fighting in my head over like what would happen to you when you're in space. Like, do you freeze? Because everybody knows space is cold.
Yeah.
So everyone assumes, and even now it's shown in movies, like, oh, if you get exposed to space, you're like, it's like Terminator 2 and getting like dunked in a cryo liquid. What's that called? Liquid nitrogen. Yeah.
Liquid nitrogen truck that crashes into the steel mill. It's the most amazing thing ever. Like, wow, that's stuff you dream about.
And then I was like, wait, like, it's vacuum, like law of thermodynamics say that heat always goes to the less resistive force, or the colder a colder object. But space isn't an object that heat can go to. So if you're out in space without a suit on, you wouldn't necessarily immediately freeze to death because there's nowhere for that heat to go. You would have electromagnetic irradiating heat going away from you, but that would take a really long time to lose all your heat from that. Because that's all the heat we get from the sun is just radiated heat. It's not, it's so the vacuum actually protects us from the sun's, nuclear explosion, the heat of the nuclear explosions. But there's a lot more awful things that can happen. It's not, you don't have to worry about the freezing thing. It's the whole like your lungs collapsing. If you have air in your lungs, they would explode, or your lungs collapsing. Your eyes and your mouth are exposed to the vacuum, and because there's no pressure around you, and water with no pressure on it will boil at a lower temperature, which is enough for your body temperature is giving off, so your mouth and your eyes will start, the water in them will start to boil, so that'll be fun. And then you'll die pretty quickly from other things, but you won't necessarily, as far as I can figure, immediately freeze to death and break into pieces like you got poured in liquid nitrogen.
Or if you're on the Mir space station and one of the rooms is exposed to the vacuum of space, you just walk through it quickly. Like that happened to a U.S. astronaut.
Yeah, but
for all its stupidity, the like Event Horizon, where he sucks all the air out of the airlock and then the door opens. It's like that's actually pretty close to what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. But like I don't know, because they also talk about like wouldn't your blood boil and stuff like that. Well, I'm not sure about that because technically I think that stuff in your body is under some pressure. Yeah. So your body wouldn't necessarily explode from the inside out, but because your eyes and your mouth are definitely exposed, that stuff would immediately boil, which is also frightening.
Yeah, it's nothing you'd want to do.
It's like, oh great, my eyes are boiling.
It's just Outland makes it the most bizarre and like psychotic, and it's like, yeah, that's amazing.
Or even Total Recall.
Total Recall, yeah, that does a pretty crazy. Outland's really bleak though. Like you just explode like a big meat balloon that's overinflated. Is pop.
um, but why the Arctic is really bad for you is because that does have atmosphere, and there is places for your heat to go, so you will die very quickly and freeze to
Yeah,
death.
that will do. Liquid nitrogen.
Let's see here. Oh yeah, Cornelius is amazed by the paper airplane. And then he kind of just like throws it away. It's like, oh, let's forget about that. That's too much for me.
No, yeah, the Zaius finds it. Yeah.
Cornelius has a theory that the apes descended from ancient man, which this is like kind of like heresy amongst the apes, I guess. And he talks about the Forbidden Zone has ruins of human civilization. Dr. Zaius and his cronies bust in. He's suspicious of like Zira and Taylor. Yeah, this is where he finds the paper airplane. He's like, "What's this?" And he was like trying to like Cornelius is trying to show off that like it floats, and he just crumples it up. He's like, "Ha, hogwash." Because again, like Dr. Zaius, like progress is the end of us, so you can only have so much progress. um, then we got to it's yeah, Taylor's back in his cage, and some guards come in saying they have orders to geld Taylor, which that just sounds like something awful. I'm not sure if
Castration.
Okay. I didn't know if it was castration or if that was something where you dump like molten lead on somebody.
No, that's some. I think that's a different thing.
Or fire gelding.
No, what's that called? I forget. Pouring lead on someone is. There's another term for that. No, but gelding is just removal of the testicles.
Oh, okay. Taylor fights back and runs away. He's almost like comic. This is almost like a Scooby Doo chase here, where Taylor like happens upon a funeral. A child points him out, so now he has like a bunch of people chasing after him. There's the obligatory
in the ape church.
Yeah. There's the obligatory fruit stand being destroyed in a chase. Yep. Here's where they miss him with a net like about 8 times.
Yeah, these guys cannot, for being net hunters, they're terrible with their net. Need more net practice.
Though I do appreciate this because I'm like, it would be hard to throw a net on somebody.
Yeah, actually, it's not easy. That's why you get the ones with the weighted balls, and you learn how to throw it so it spreads out in the air.
Or get that net gun that shoots it for you.
Yeah,
it's got the balls on there. It throws it at you for you.
Yeah, and it looks evil when you're carrying it around and pointing it at people. Like, what's that? It's a net gun. I thought it was gonna like vaporize it.
Taylor runs into a museum of humans. There's also some like dinosaur bones are around. Which they don't talk about that.
No.
Taylor spots a dead Dodge who's just being posed in the museum, which is like
stuffed.
Yeah.
Like his eyes are like white and milky, like and stuffed like a deer.
Although I think it makes it weirder. It's distracting because it seems like these are supposed to be like, stuffed people or mannequins of humans, but clearly these people cannot stand still because they're clearly like moving.
Yeah, they didn't like actually make a wax dummy, so the guys just got to stand there like this.
Which I'm like, wait, are they like convincing these humans they need to stand still, or are they stuffed humans? It's like, how far are we gonna go with this?
Yeah.
But looking at Dodge, it's like, oh no, it's like a stuffed human.
Well, you remember the head they made in Alien of Ash?
Yeah.
You had to reshoot that because like they made the head of what was the actor's name? He was Bilbo. Not the younger one, the older one. He died recently. I can't think of his name. Anyway, yeah. And then they made the thing. They made the mold of his head, and then it like shrunk, and it wasn't convincing at all. So they had to like do quick cuts with it. Because when she puts Ash back together, because his head gets knocked off with a fire extinguisher, and he's one of those weird robots with the white gel inside him or whatever, and then she's like wiring him up but putting his head on the table. That thing, they had to film that really quick because it was just a mold of his head that shrunk. And so they just kind of did a quick cut, and then he animates, and it's like, oh yeah, it's just his head through the table. It's the actor doing that. But
Ian Holm.
Ian Holm, that's it. Yeah.
Um,
So they did, yeah. So that's why they didn't, they didn't cast a mold of this guy. Actually, if they did make a mold of this guy and it shrunk, it would make sense because it's like, well, yeah, he's stuffed.
yeah, they don't have any refrigeration.
Yeah.
It's just wilting. Taylor runs out and he's like surrounded by apes. Like essentially the entire town is out there. They finally get him with a net and kind of like but it's like over an archway, so they like
Yeah,
hang
the
him over the archway.
chimpanzees kind of corner him with having a food fight with him,
Yeah,
and then they like start over the top. They can throw the net because Ape City, which is what I'm going to call it because it was never given a name as far as I know, is like this weird organic city. Like it looks like there's a bunch of weird organic cement shapes, like it was carved out of rock or something. And so there's all kinds of like bridges and high places, which would kind of make sense for people that were like the more direct descendants of apes. But these people just walk around and move like humans. Like they're not swinging around in trees, like, like we think of apes.
So yeah, they're kind of pulling him up like from the arch, and they're like holding him up in the air. Zero tries to help Taylor, but like a guard pushes her away, and then that guard goes and grabs Taylor, and this is where the famous line, "Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape." So this is where everyone's shocked by like, oh, he can speak. Like, oh my god, what does that mean for all of the rest of time?
And you think like, well, now he's going to get like some real clothes and they're going to work together to solve some problems. But no.
Now Zayas still casts doubt. Yeah, he's just mimicking. He's just a parrot. He's just a meat parrot.
Yeah.
Then we cut to Taylor's back in his cell with Nova. The guards come in with a hose and like keep Taylor back with the hose, and they take Nova away. Or I guess they just put her in a cage across the room, so he can't just have all the sex he wants in between. There's also another famous line because he's just like, "It's a madhouse, a madhouse."
Yeah, he's like getting a fire hose, which is like, for the tech this society has, that's weird. Like, how are they pressurizing water? Like,
yeah, there's a weird.
I don't even see like steam technology in evidence here, really.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of the thing of this is like you don't get a taste of like how things work here because it seems like they seem fairly primitive. Like it seemed even less than medieval times, but then of course like then guns show up and they have technologies like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's like a combination of like the 18th century, but with no like steam or anything. But then I guess that makes sense if you're like this really religiously based society.
Yeah.
Where they put weird handicaps on things. For no reason. Because I mean, for reasons. Because like I said, this is one of those shows where it's like, oh, the bad guy's like totally right. As bad as he is, he's like, well, he's not wrong.
Here's also
he is the guardian of his civilization because he knows what's coming.
Yeah. Here's some creepy stuff about Stuart. He's like, she's to be our new Eve. I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna work, dude. There's gonna be 3 guys banging one chick, and then basically you're gonna be banging some guy's daughter, like 16 years later, because there's no rules anymore.
Yeah. Nothing, like I said, nothing does matter as long as you don't get caught.
Nova's like listening to him, but like she has no comprehension of what he's saying. Here I think she smiles, which is a big thing in the book because when they first meet, he like smiles at Nova, think it's a friendly gesture, but like to her, it's like he's showing his teeth, so that's like a gesture of
he's gonna bite me.
Yeah. And then later on in the book, she learns that as being like a kind of like an endearing thing, like, oh, smiling. It's like oh my god, she learned smiling. It's like, did she? Then the guards take Taylor away. Taylor's being put on trial by doctors.
Having a weird like Soviet show trial.
Yeah.
Taylor, organized by Zayas.
Yeah, but even he's like, what's he even on trial here? What's he guilty of? And it's like, but it really ends up being like, what's it, a trial about like Zira and Corneo's heresy? Like,
Yeah,
of,
it's essentially heresy. Yeah.
uh, Dr. Zaius is the minister of science and the defender of the faith. But there's also a president there, so he's not necessarily like the most highest up guy, but he seems to be has the most important task of keeping society in check.
Yeah, he's like under the ministry of science and God or whatever, which is like, yeah, that's like good. Society's going the right direction when you have one of those ministries.
That's a good push pull.
Oh yeah.
It's a combination of things. Seems like these should be separate.
No, this is how we maintain balance. What? Because I have to prove things with science, and you can just say Skyman. It's like, great. Yeah, that's going to be a fun argument to have all the time. I think fire is good. We can make metal with it. But Skyman says, it's like, oh, fuck. How's Skyman going to back that up? What does he know about the crystalline structure of iron and how to make it into steel, like, carbonizing it with coal? And it's like, well, it's not allowed. Why? It's like, because rules. Oh, that's why I love like religiously, like concepts of religiously ordered societies is like, oh my God. I mean, it did work for a long time when like nobody could read and write and people thought like elves were coming out of the wood and stealing stuff from them. And it's like, well, we got to sacrifice the village virgin for the bean harvest to come in. It was like, no, it's better to stop doing that and replace that with other bullshit. But, the fact that we have stuff floating around the atmosphere, or the fact that we have stuff floating around our planet that makes what we're doing right now possible, and yet we still have to have religious arguments even today, that strikes me as really weird at this point. It's like, huh?
Well, technically in this process, satellites aren't involved, but
well, they
but
help make it happen at some point.
We need to start. We need to get on that microwave. Actually, what? Gotta move on. Let's see here. Oh yeah, one of the judges doesn't like that Taylor's clothes, doesn't like his tattered clothes or that it smells, so they strip him of his clothes. But he just kind of holds on and covers up his junk. But
yeah,
yeah. What's more an effort is the trials like. What's more the trials about is spending effort on studying humans and like we should stop this. Taylor's examined, but he's like railroaded for like not knowing the culture of the apes.
Yeah, he's basically like answer questions about like our religion or whatever, like who is the great teacher and what it's like, just of course he's not going to know that. I mean they did that a lot in the Soviet Union. That's why I say this is a Soviet show trial, because I remember when Gorbachev he'd said stuff at like the student union when he was a student in Moscow that they didn't like. He got put on like some kind of trial, like not a big one but a little one, and they were like challenging him. It's like, well, what does Marx say about this? And he started quoting Marx and giving like text citations, but you can find that in the the short course Karl Marx book 3 or whatever. It was total horseshit. He was making it up. He was making up references, but everyone on the committee was like, well, your knowledge of Marxism is very important. We're going to give you a pass here. And he's like, yeah, great. Now, that's where Gorbachev learned to be a politician right there. Like, no, you just lie and make it sound convincing.
The courtroom head off to look at other captured humans because he's like, Landon's gonna break it if we have another intelligent human. But they get to Landon and he's just been lobotomized, so he can't talk. They get dragged back in the court. Cornelius is trying to like use his expertise of the Forbidden Zone to try and like argue that Taylor is from the Forbidden Zone rather than from space, because like, well, at least they can kind of understand that.
Yeah.
And then the judges do the whole see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil thing.
Literally, yeah.
The tribunal is adjourned, which usually that means there's going to be another thing, but here it just seems like the trial's over. So, yeah. I don't know. Is that the same thing? Is adjourning the same as like a break and an end, or what? Or is adjournment?
Well, it means they will hear no more arguments on the matter.
Okay.
I don't know if they've rendered judgment, but I don't know if they do that in this, because I think what Zaius wants is like, yeah, you're getting, you're it's gonna one flew over the cuckoo's nest time for you.
But yeah, things don't look good for Taylor. Taylor's brought before Dr. Zaius, who like for a one-on-one talk, and they're gonna do brain surgery on Taylor if he can't convince Zaius of the truth. Zaius wants to know like where all the mutants are because that's kind of his thing. It's like, well, I can't believe a spaceman, but if it's a mutant human, like we gotta get rid of those. uh, they talk about the Eastern Desert has not been explored because it's assumed life cannot live there, and then Taylor's taken away, so that's the end of Act Two because it's like, well, he's about to be have his brain scrambled. So come back to Act Three. A chimpanzee comes in saying that Taylor's being transferred to the zoo. The chimp is on Taylor's side, and so they like knock out the guard together. Taylor insists on Nova coming with them, and then they run outside, and Zero shows up, and she's displeased that Nova's along.
Yeah.
So they lock them in the back of a carriage, and they ride out till dawn. And we cut to it's morning. They're traveling in the woods. They cross paths with Cornelius, who has some extra horses. They give Taylor like gun and supplies, but then they all just like move together anyways. And Zero and Cornelius are going to run away as well because they're wanted for heresy. And but now they're all going to go look for the ruins that Cornelius found so they can like figure out what's going on here. There's a moment where Nova recognizes something familiar and they have to like pull her away. She's like, "No, I want to go over there." Then we cut to like we're in the forbidden zone that has been declared by religious means.
Yeah.
They're riding along the shore. They set up camp at the beach. There's like BC platforms and ladders there. I'm not sure if like Cornelius built all those or if these are just the ruins of human civilization. I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is where things get really weird because it's like, well, it's a forbidden zone, but we know some things that are there. There's ruins that indicate there was an earlier civilization, maybe of human origin, but that's heresy. But we're also investigating it, and people seem to know about it.
And then Dr. Zaius and his gorilla show up. Taylor shoots at some snipers and pins them down, and then he threatens Dr. Zaius, and so Zaius tells all the guards to leave. Then Taylor negotiates a way to like free Zira and Cornelius if he can like provide evidence that there's another civilization other than apes. And Dr. Zaius is like, yeah, sure, why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, if you convince me. So they go into the cave.
Yeah, if you can convince me as a religious leader of your heresy, like, cool, yeah. So I already know like who's gonna win this. I hold both cards.
They go into the cave. There's like woods and ladders and platforms and everything, which I don't know if this is like humans did this or Cornelius did this because he's like Cornelius had been excavating the area and having like different and dating things to different eras. So here, like Cornelius gives a case that the more ancient culture is the more advanced one, meaning human cult, like the human society is more advanced and older than the ape society. They also point out like a doll that's of ancient humans, and then Taylor starts pointing out like, oh, here's false teeth, glasses, and a heart valve. Because I don't think we've seen any apes with glasses, so maybe they haven't discovered that yet. But they got guns, so
Yeah.
Nova like squeezes a doll and it says "Mama," and so that throws everything for a loop. Because it's a doll that says words and humans don't talk. So
Yeah.
the apes come back around again and attack Taylor and his group. Taylor gets a hold of Zaius and holds him hostage again. The guards withdraw again. Taylor ties Zaius to some driftwood. Here, Taylor susses out that Cornelius knew that civilization of man existed for apes the whole time, and this is just like this ruse he has to keep up because it's protecting the society somehow. So,
well, no, he has them read from the holy book in his pocket because their philosopher says, it's like, was it like the way of the man is damnation?
Yeah,
or something. Yeah. It's something like that.
Yeah, the man will fight itself. So. Here it's like as long as apes are like fighting against humans who are just pretty much shooting fish in a barrel, everything will be okay because the apes aren't fighting themselves. So.
Yeah, the apes don't seem to be like in contention with each other.
Oh, that they were and there is, but that's all Dr. Zaius' thing is here is to keep all that under check as much as possible so they don't fight themselves. So. Taylor gets us some. He puts in he puts in some. What do you call it? Demands, and he gets a supply of horses and food and bullets. And so he says goodbye to everyone. He gives Zira a kiss, but she's like, "Sure, but you're so damned ugly."
Yeah.
Because I guess there's a whole thing. It's actually more so in the book about there's kind of this tension. I'm not sure if sexual is the way, but intimate tension between Dr. Zira and well, in the book it's Ulysses, but Taylor here. So
Yeah.
because she's like, he's smarter than everyone, so he's more interesting to Zira than everybody else. But also,
I guess in some passages of the script there was talk about maybe having a romantic thing,
yeah.
but then that was like everyone's like that would actually be bestiality. You can't have that.
They're two intelligent beings. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah,
two consenting intelligent beings.
consenting adult creatures.
Yeah, actually, the weird thing. No, Taylor having sex with Nova. That's bestiality.
Yeah, that's actually truly. But if you're following any kind of biology and you know about like apes and humans, well, humans as apes, as hominids, like our male humans have the largest genitals of all the apes, like orders of magnitude larger than they need to be on both men and women. Because you think like a gorilla is like, oh man, they're just hung like a horse. It's like, no, it's about the size of your pinky actually, because it doesn't have to be. I forget why. I think it's because of the climates we lived in and the fact we don't like keep warm with the fur. It's like everything's like oversized and big, and it's like, so yeah, if you follow that evolutionary track, it's like, no, that'd just be brutal. Like a woman getting screwed by a horse or something. It's like, but you have to, that's why they didn't explore it, because it just gets too weird.
Yeah.
Just get wrapped around the axle of biology. So.
But it's also weird here. He kisses her in front of Cornelius. It's like, dude, like they're a thing. But I don't know. I guess also at this time, kisses were more innocent. So
Yeah. It does. They weren't like tongue kissing. It's like,
no.
I've got to say goodbye to you the French way. Put my tongue in your throat.
They start running off. The guards start chasing them, and the Zeus is like, "Nah, let them go." But also, like, yeah,
I like Zeus's like last shot at Taylor. It's like, yeah, you're not gonna like anything you find out there. Taylor's like, yeah, we'll see. Zeus is nodding like, yeah, you will.
And then they blow up the cave, so there's no more evidence of humans in there. And Zira and Cornelius are going to be put on trial for heresy.
Everybody's going to be killed, as far as we know. Yeah, they're going to be crucified. What's going to happen?
Taylor,
friends. See you later.
Taylor and Nova keep moving along the beach. It's a pretty long sequence here, so it's not just immediate. And then they happen upon a structure, which you don't see just yet. And Taylor dismounts. And goes, "Oh my God, I'm back. I'm home all the time. I'm home all this time. It was." And he drops to his knees. We really did it. You maniacs! You blew it all up. I mean, well, we didn't blow it. I don't know. God damn you all to hell. And here it's fully revealed that it's a Statue of Liberty buried halfway on the beach, and it's dirty and falling apart. And then just fade out, and that's the end of the movie. It's left to let you contemplate. They're on Earth the whole time. Now, how do you think? Now, do you think the erosion and weird stuff happened in the Statue of Liberty? Do you think land grew around the Statue of Liberty? Do you think it floated off into the ocean somehow, or do you think they're like humans were moving it at one point and it just fell on a beach?
It could be any of those things. It could be the ocean like receded out to Ellis Island. It's like its pedestal is down there somewhere. I mean, you don't know.
And the Statue of Liberty on the beach, I'm probably more familiar and seen more of the Spaceballs version of it. Yeah.
We have no idea like how the world was destroyed. At least not if we just stop with this movie. It's like we don't really know. Like,
I mean, I imagine at the time. I mean, also he's saying you blew it all up. I think people just imagine, nuclear war screwed up everything.
Probably. So. But as we've gone on and our understanding of things has evolved, it's like, well, nuclear war is unlikely to be like the extermination event. It's like, the Western Hemisphere would be a really weird place to live for a while, but it's not. We don't have that kind of power at our fingers. We can ruin a lot of shit, but total destruction is like that's more like disease or something like that,
Well, did you ever
or
watch?
asteroids, or those kind of things.
How far did you get in the original movies? I think I've only seen bits of like. There's like that
I've
one where they're talking to a computer in a cave. I saw that one. The second one. I never got to
Yeah,
the
the
one where they
second one
had.
they're running around like the subway system of New York, and they're worshiping a nuclear bomb in the
Yeah,
end bit, and it's like I don't remember a lot of it. That's
and I know
Jennifer
there's one later
Heston
on.
showed up for like 5 minutes of that one. It's like
And I
it
know
happened.
there's a later one which even had a cheaper budget where they have like a bunch of people in ape costumes and like with rifles and revolting in like modern day times. I never saw that one, but I've seen shots of it. I think that's like the fourth or fifth one or something like that.
Yeah, they're increasingly bleak as time goes on. I think like somehow Dr. Zira and Dr. Cornelius like come back to Earth in the 70s,
Yeah, they get sent back in time. So
and they
yeah,
have a baby, and then
yeah,
they get killed at the end, but the baby lives, and that becomes the thing that rises up and leads the revolt because they just start cloning those apes and use them as slaves. So it's like it's a whole cycle, but like I said, it just gets
and
increasingly bleak and weird and incoherent as
but
time goes.
I think there is a mention of like there's some disease that are affecting humans and not apes.
Well,
Because
that's
that's
in the new ones.
yeah, but no, I think there's like a kernel of it in the old ones.
Oh, okay, I didn't know about that.
But
Okay.
again, I haven't because it's in that one where they have the modern day apes revolting against humans. So I don't know. But I believe that's like a kernel that brought forward. Yeah, in the new ones, it's like yeah, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and then like um, they're trying to use apes to like cure dementia and stuff. Um, and then that's just kind of like a modern day movie where like like you have an ape becoming more intelligent and then other apes becoming intelligent around it because but was that an experiment or was that just apes getting more intelligent?
No, they was doing an experiment to reverse the effects of dementia
Okay.
by regrowing, because the dementia is basically the failure of brain material to function correctly. And so I believe they did an experiment and like rejuvenated brain material in humans, but it just made the brains work better in apes. And then it also had this transgenic effect of becoming a disease that made all apes smarter it made humans dumber.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, okay, so that's like
Yeah,
the
because the first movie's normal, and then the second movie's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, where it's just like, oh, full apocalypse has happened, human civilization's collapsed, and this disease has ravaged everything,
yeah,
and other stuff. It's not just like this disease made humans dumb. It's also like, well, like famine and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
just
There was like nuclear war in that too, but that was the third or fourth thing after people starved to death. I was like, yeah, then you start throwing nukes around. It's like, yo, then you could conceivably wipe everyone out because, if 4 billion people are already dead, it's a lot less numbers to hit.
Then you have War for the Planet of the Apes, which that's the end of that one, where it's basically all at that. Basically, by the end of that movie, there's no intelligent human life left.
Yeah.
um, but still, thousands of years away from the civilization portrayed in this movie. So,
Yeah.
or I guess like 1,500 years, 1,700, whatever. But those movies are really good. That's a good series.
Yeah, that's actually a good one. This is the only real good one I would remember or recommend out of these.
The originals, yeah.
Yeah. This one I liked. All the other ones I've seen them like once, and it's like, oh, they're just more bleak and depressing as time goes on.
Well, we're sending a probe into space to catch up with this with this crew here to spin him around and send him back to Earth. Actually, I guess I should tell they need the book. So yeah, of course, this is changed from the book, but also the book has like 4 different surprise endings as well. So this is totally in theme with the book. Because in the book, they leave the planet of the apes and they go back to Earth, and then when they get off the ship on Earth, there's apes have taken over Earth.
Okay.
So it's a similar thing. And so they get on a ship and they leave Earth. It's like it's taken over by apes. And then it's also further revealed that the rich couple at the beginning of it, they're reading the story because it's all the story of Ulysses or here the Taylor character, and they're like, "Oh, that's funny. Humans aren't intelligent, and like they are apes." So the whole framework is like it's like a double reveal that like, oh, apes control the entire universe. It's not just one planet.
Oh, okay.
And then in the Tim Burton version, it's the Tim Burton version is more closer to the book. They get off the planet. It is in a completely another planet, and then they go back to Earth. And then they, instead of Statue of Liberty, they think they're back on Earth and everything's okay. And then apes start showing up, and they go look at the
Lincoln Memorial.
yeah, and then there's an ape head on there, which then there was some contention between Tim Burton and Kevin Smith because he had made a comic book with the same concept of Abraham Lincoln
Oh, okay.
before they put that movie out. Nothing happened, he's not going to sue Tim Burton. But
It's just funny. Yeah, he's not. Yeah, let's. Kevin Smith is not Harlan Ellison. He will humorously point out that.
yeah, Kevin Smith made a career of talking about Star Wars. So he's like, it's like my career is based on another career. I'm not gonna bite the hand that feeds me. And he has great story. Well, I guess not about Tim Burton, but I guess the whole production around his Superman movie was hilarious. So.
I still love that story. Can we get rid of the whole flying thing? It's like, it's Superman.
So we sent a probe into space containing the supercut of seeds for the imperfect collection that's Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what scene from Planet of the Apes are we shoving into space?
There's 3 iconic scenes in this movie, but we're gonna have to do Get Your Hands Off Me. Because if we just do the end, that doesn't make any sense. I also like It's a Madhouse.
Yeah.
But we have to go with Get Your Filthy Hands Off.
And so you can find us on no, I completely freaking, what the hell is it called? No, not Box Office Mojo. Why do I keep forgetting the name of this thing? God damn it.
Which one is it?
Oh, it's the thing where it's like the site where you do like quick reviews of movies.
There's a bunch of those.
Yeah, this one's like more like God damn it, why can I never remember the name of it? Letterboxd.
Oh, Letterboxd. Okay.
We're on Letterboxd. Our account name is VHE. Very simple, very easy. So if you search for that name, you'll find us there. So Nathan, 1 out of 5 stars. What do you give Planet of the Apes?
4 stars. A solid 4. 1 of those stars is for nostalgia. 3 of those is for the production, the movie, and it's what do they say in the Library of Congress? It's cultural significance.
Well, if you like what you heard, and how can you can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. You can also find us almost everywhere where you get podcasts, and you can rate our podcast whatever you want on that platform of your choice. You can rate us whatever you want, but the only thing the algorithm listens to is the highest rating. Remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. We also have listener support at verhoeveneffect.com, where you can support the monthly stipend on 99 cents, $49.99, or $9.99. Cancel anytime. Find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Letterboxd. Just type in VHE. It'll bring it up. And you can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory and watch both this and that show live and unedited. And we also have t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/Greed Factory. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.